Good evening and thank you for joining us for KREM 2 News at 6 tonight. I'm Mark Hanrahan.
Good to have you here tonight. I'm Whitney Ward. We begin now as newly released court documents are giving us new insight into the tragic death of a 19-month-old girl over the weekend. Deputies arrested the mother's boyfriend in connection with that case.
KREM 2's Morgan Trout joining us live in the newsroom tonight. And Morgan, you just got the search warrant documents for the case.
That's right. Mickey Brown Jr. was looking after little Azalea at the time of the incident. And these documents detail all of the different stories that Brown told deputies about how the girl was hurt. He changed his story not once, but several times. The documents show the Spokane Valley firefighters arrived at the home to find an unconscious toddler. They requested help from the deputies after seeing her injuries. The search warrant adds that at the hospital, doctors told deputies that the 19-month-old was suffering a brain bleed. Doctors found abrasions on the girl's chest and knees and bruises on her cheek and inside one of her ears. Investigators say the man who was supposed to be watching Azalea Rain Red Horse Jones is 19-year-old Mickey Brown Jr. He's the new boyfriend of the mom who was watching the toddler while she was at work. When investigators arrived to the scene, Brown had a few stories. Initially, he told detectives he was giving Azalea a bath when she started to have a seizure. He claimed he picked up the toddler and ran to his brother's home. Brown said he then left her with his brother to go find a phone to call 911 because he didn't think his would work. His brother Michael says he used the suspect's phone to call 911 and then started to perform CPR. At one point, documents show detectives overheard a phone conversation between Brown and the child's mother. During that call, the mother said her daughter had been suffering seizures for the past month and that the toddler was scheduled for an EKG the next week. But a doctor told investigators the child's injuries were not consistent with a seizure. This is when we learn another story. Mickey told firefighters that their dog had knocked Azalea over and she hit her head the day before. When interviewing Michael and another brother, they stated that the toddler had a seizure when Mickey was putting on her diaper. The search warrant shows Brown's next story was that while carrying the toddler to his brother, he dropped her outside. But deputies say a doctor classified the injuries as non-accidental inflicted trauma indicative of child abuse. After 4 days, Azalea died in the hospital. As it turns out, Brown is no stranger to law enforcement in both Washington and Idaho. At the time of his booking, he had 3 active warrants in Kootenai County and another in Spokane, mainly for theft. This mugshot was sent to KREM 2 from the Kootenai County Jail from a previous arrest. At his first hearing for the assault, his judge references that Brown has neglected to show up to any of his hearings. So that, in addition to the severe accusation against him, made the bail that high. Brown remains in jail on an assault charge, but prosecutors have said they will likely upgrade that. On Saturday at 7 in the evening, Azalea's family will be holding a candlelight vigil at Marabou Point Park. All this information about the event is on our website right now. In the newsroom, Morgan Trout, KREM 2 News.
All right, Morgan, thank you very much. In the meantime, the air quality has now reached the unhealthy category, and it's been sitting there most of the day. That means all of us could start to experience more serious health effects if you're outside for too long. So it's recommended you just try and limit your time outdoors as much as you can to protect yourself.
It's not just the smoke. We're also still under that excessive heat warning all across the inland Northwest tonight, which will expire tomorrow night at 8 p.m. And Tom, we're expecting some cooler weather finally next week, right?
Yeah, and I think that cool front that's going to move in Sunday night into Monday will help really fix our air quality, really increase our air quality back more into that moderate range, hopefully into the good air quality range. Right now, the AQI is at 184. That puts us right in the unhealthy category. We were above 200 earlier today, so we've seen slight bits of improvement. You can see the smoke on that visible satellite imagery, black and white right there. It's moving in from the west and the northwest. Fires in Canada and also in northern British Columbia, and also the fires that are just north of the Spokane area. That smoke all moving in and just sinking and getting settled. We need even more than a shift in our wind direction. We really need to get a cooler air mass to move in. Here's a look at the future tracker for smoke forecast. And again, you'll see as we work our way into Saturday morning, still pretty smoky as you take a look at the grid right there. But as we get into late Saturday night, see how it turns kind of yellow by 11 o'clock Saturday evening? That's better air that we think, and less smoke that will be in our area. So we'll keep our fingers crossed for that. That excessive heat warning, as you can see. By the way, Mark, that's now been extended from Saturday into Sunday because we thought we'd be in the low 90s on Sunday. Now the computer modeling is maybe the upper 90s on Sunday. Sunday, 97 to be exact. May hit 101 tomorrow. The rest of your 10-day forecast coming up in a few minutes.
All right, Tom, thank you very much. More than 150 COVID cases are now being linked to the Watershed Country Music Festival at the Gorge just a few weeks ago, and authorities in Grant County say they fully expect that number to continue to grow.
The three-day music festival attracted about 20,000 people per day 2 weekends ago, and while event organizers strongly encouraged people to get vaccinated before the event, there was no vaccine requirement. KREM 2's Casey Decker joining us live in the newsroom tonight with what Grant County health officials are saying about this outbreak. Casey?
Yeah, Mark, Whitney, interestingly, none of the cases so far have actually been directly linked to Spokane County, but they have been linked to 11 other counties in Washington and one in Oregon. And it's not the number of cases that's really worrying health officials, it's how far they're spreading. The first thing to know about these numbers is that they're far from the final definitive statistic.
Many people will just isolate at home, get through the illness and not go in for testing. And so when we see numbers like this, we view it as this is the minimum, right? And there's a number of others. So we want to make sure the public are aware, hey, if you were at the festival, please go in and get tested.
But let's give them some context. 160 cases so far with about 20,000 total attendees. Now, that number is per day, and a lot of people stayed the whole weekend, so we don't really know the precise number of unique guests. Regardless, let's compare Watershed to another big festival recently, Lollapalooza in Chicago. There, they had just over 200 cases, and it was celebrated as a victory. But Lolla is also more than 10 times the size of Watershed, hosting about 385,000 people, and it had only a couple dozen more cases. Lolla also mandated vaccines or a negative COVID test to get in, something Watershed didn't do. They recommended vaccine and mask use but didn't require it. Organizers sent us a statement reading in part, quote, Watershed Festival worked to ensure all recommended guidelines from local officials were followed. We are encouraging everyone who attended to engage in regular testing for COVID-19 so we can all do our best to protect one another. What's really concerning to health officials, people getting infected in the Gorge and then taking COVID back home to their own communities.
We're already starting to see secondary cases where, a household member did not attend Watershed, but they contracted it from their household member.
The good news, though, no hospitalizations have been linked to the festival so far.
This festival is going to be attended by a lot more younger individuals, and our hospitalizations are often occurring in, folks that are 50 and older, although we are starting to see younger and younger people being hospitalized with COVID.
But there again, secondary infections are a concern. Younger festival goers could be bringing the virus back to their older, more vulnerable relatives. And health officials say getting a hold on outbreaks is harder than ever right now.
You're just almost guaranteed to see additional cases where before a lot of times you could isolate and control it. But now with things being open, folks are not always adhering to our advice to stay home.
Now, we don't know at the moment if any of these cases were breakthrough infections with vaccinated folks, but both festival organizers and Grant County health leaders say all this is a reminder the safest and easiest way to get protected is to get that shot. Meanwhile, the governor's office told me today they're very concerned about this outbreak and the general rise in cases across Washington, and that this is impacting their thinking when it comes to considering restrictions on large events. Whitney, Mark?
Casey, thank you very much. Meantime, Washington State Superintendent says unless all teachers and school staff members are vaccinated, students should prepare for going back to online learning, quarantines, and school shutdowns.
Superintendent Chris Rakedahl is now asking the governor to add those to the list of employees in the state who must get the vaccine. Drew Mickelson from our Seattle sister station asked the superintendent if he thinks that will actually happen.
Without additional measures, keeping schools open will be a challenge.
State Superintendent Chris Rakedahl wants anyone who works on a K-12 campus to get vaccinated. He's asking for Governor Inslee to mandate it as a condition of employment, as the governor did Monday for state and healthcare workers. Rakedahl wants the same medical and religious exemptions available. He's just interested in getting to those who have skipped the shot by choice.
They need to understand the consequences of a variant like Delta impacting us as it is clearly doing in parts of the country with devastating impacts. We will have to shut down schools.
We have to have schools open. We got to be open 5 days a week.
Ray Nelson, president of the North Thurston Education Association, says he has not had a chance to poll his 1,000 members about the potential mandate. He estimates about 90% of his members are vaccinated.
I'm sure somewhere in the mix there we're going to have some folks like, don't be telling me what to do, and we'll have to talk to them. well, here are your options.
I do not predict a mass exodus of people.
North Thurston spokeswoman Courtney Shreve says the district welcomes a vaccine mandate for staff, hopefully making their campuses safer places to work and learn.
I am hopeful. We have a bus driver shortage right now. We need more paraeducators. So I hope that this is not a deterrent.
That was Drew Mickelson reporting. The ball now in the governor's court, and we've been told that his office will have more to say on that coming up next week. Meantime, Rakedahl says he's been in touch with teachers' unions, and there is a hope there might be more exemptions or options offered to teachers. But Rakedahl says he wants to limit those exemptions to only those medical or religious based.
And as we continue tracking coronavirus cases here locally, health officials are reporting 303 new cases today in Spokane County. In total, there have been more than 51,000 cases since the start of the pandemic. One new death was also reported today, and 133 patients with COVID are currently in the hospital.
Also new tonight, Oregon Governor Kate Brown deploying up to 1,500 National Guard members to support hospitals as COVID cases there soar as well. It's an effort to help frontline workers deal with the increasing number of COVID hospitalizations and cases as the Delta variant spreads. Governor Brown made the announcement today, saying the troops are prepared to help more than 20 hospitals across the state starting on August 20th. As of right now, there are a record 733 COVID patients hospitalized in Oregon, and 185 are in intensive care units. The Spokane Shock have their last regular season game tonight, and it's against an old foe. They're taking on the Arizona Rattlers in a rivalry renewed this evening. More on that when we come back after the break.